Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Shoe and Show. This is your weekly podcast about the shoe business and all things footwear. We love having conversations with some of the top industry executives, and today is no different. And so, Thomas, without further ado, who's on Shoe and Show with us today?
We are very excited today to bring in Jonathan Frankel. He is the president of Aldo Product Services. So we got to have a lot to talk about today, an exciting show, and we just want to get right into it. So, Jonathan, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much for being a part of Shoe In today.
Pleasure.
So, first question for you is very interested to know your shoe story. How did you get into footwear?
It's a fairly recent history lesson when you think of a lot of the coworkers and the people that I've met that have been around for decades in the industry. I actually started in ski and snowboard and action sport, spent my whole career there, but it was always in wholesale, and it was in North American focus and an international business focus. Worked for a bunch of different companies, also in outdoor, and basically through mutual friends and also through connections from childhood, reconnected with David Bensonoon, who is the CEO and was running the North American business for Aldo Group over 10 years ago. It's been 12 years now. And he said to me, "I have a crazy idea, John. I'd like to start a wholesale business." And this was a family-owned operation, which is a world-class, best-in-class retail operator operating in over 110 countries around the world now, with over 1,000 retail locations. But it was an organization that had a lot to learn in terms of wholesale, the approach, setting up the pipelines, the go-to-market strategy, all of those different things. And what you very quickly learn in wholesale is that you may work for a snowboard brand or a ski brand or an outdoor brand or a women's fashion footwear brand, but how you kind of deliver that model and execute it and bring it all together is very, very similar. So I've been really fortunate and excited to have joined Aldo Group at the onset of this wholesale journey of theirs, which they created a new division called Aldo Product Services. I joined about, I think it was 10 or 12 months after the division was created. And we've just been taking it step by step to build a wholesale arm to the Aldo Group, specializing in North America and specializing in not only wholesaling the house brands, but also licenses and private label as well.
So, that begs the kind of the encouragement for all of us. Do not burn bridges, even in your childhood, right? Because this childhood friend gave you a job that you've really excelled at, Jonathan. And one of the things that we're excited about, you're a board member now at FDRA, which is a super as honor for us. I will say also, and based on the image behind you, you also run Sperry now. Talk to us about your roles both with Aldo Product Services, but also Sperry.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful evolution and a really nice storybook of failures and successes along the way. And we've definitely taken a lot of chances with the support of David and the family behind learning new tricks for the business. But Aldo Product Services started out as a very, very strong private label business where we were making shoes very quietly behind the scenes like the Wizard of Oz for other people's brands and businesses, department stores, mass market, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, mostly in North America and the UK, a little bit into Europe as well. And I think at our peak, we were doing almost 24 million pairs a year in private label, mostly in footwear and in handbags. But heading into the pandemic and maybe about 2 years before that, we realized that it was time to pivot our model and to get into brand and license business where we could have a little bit more longevity and equity that we were building from a brand and a content point of view. Make it a bit more sticky, if you will, in terms of what we were doing. Because private label, even if you're an exceptional service provider and you do a really good job, margins are tight, volumes must be big for GM dollars to make sense. But at the end of the day, it's always a little bit of a costing game from season to season year, and there's a lot of crows pecking at your business as you've built it. Whereas when you become known for a brand and you create connection with a consumer through the retailer, and then you operate in a very authentic way, you tend to build a bit more of a sticky business together with the retailer. So we signed a bunch of different licenses at the beginning. And I would say, in our first chapter of licensing, we were learning the ropes, and we were also learning what to do and not to do, how to build key items instead of collections, and really become kind of masters of bringing brands and product points of view to market. We dabbled in a bunch of smaller licenses, which had very little commitments at the beginning as we were learning. And then we partnered with Authentic Brands Group on Sperry. That was one of our biggest brands that we had signed to date. And most recently, we just partnered with G3 on GH Bass, which we're really excited about. Sperry is a really exciting one because it's a core licensing model. So we operate the outlet stores, which we took over, all the product development, design, sales, brand content creation with Authentic, but then also the e-commerce business as well. That was the first one where you saw almost the two worlds collide, where there was a lot of retail experience and digital experience that we were able to bring to a license project, merge it with wholesale, and have like a wholesale and direct-to-consumer business model, which was really, really exciting to see those paths connect. And that's why we went after GH Bass, because we have the opportunity to rinse and repeat and do the same thing.
Do you feel, talking licensing, do you feel there's an opportunity to grow more, to add more licensing? Do you feel, or do you feel the portfolio is full right now?
It's a great question, Thomas. I ask myself that every time my phone rings and there's a new opportunity, which is kind of weekly these days, which is a good thing, but also kind of sad when you think about how many businesses are struggling. We tend to look at it almost like a matrix, if you will, from a price point north to south and a fashion or a utilization east to west. And we try to be a bit pragmatic in terms of how many times we're putting a stamp down on one quadrant or an area of that matrix. And if we have enough brands that we really think from an end consumer and a retail distribution point of view that they are making the most out of the market opportunity, then we probably wouldn't be signing a lot of deals that would overlap into that. Never say never, but that's kind of a guiding principle. So I think we've done a good job right now at kind of spreading out a lot of diversification in terms of the licenses, both from price points and fashionability or user. And that's kind of how we approach it. So always open for opportunity. I think we're being a bit more picky now. We really realize that things are not getting easier, they're getting tougher. So you need to have really good brands that you can get behind, strong brand awareness that you can rebuild with connectivity across multiple generations, both genders, multiple seasonalities. So we've got like a good checklist of like what needs to be true. And we're just trying to not chase a whole bunch of shiny objects all over the place.
And that's got to be hard to do. There's discipline in that, Jonathan, I think. But I will say you showed a really shiny video of the Sperry heritage, I think, of a Footwear News event last year, if I'm not mistaken. And I just remember as I watched that video, just the iconic imagery of who over the years has worn Sperry topsiders.
Yeah.
It's a who's who of culture, politics, history, fashion, etc. And so that's a super shiny object. I would have bought it as well. And I think, I was in Annapolis over the weekend in Maryland. It's just, there are these communities in particular that are always Sperry communities, but then it broadens out with, every few years, it kind of expands back out to the broader culture. So I'm bullish about it. Do you feel the same as far as kind of where Sperry is right now and just the brand equity that's been built up over so many years?
Yeah, we took over the business from Wolverine, who was, they were a really great partner in transitioning the business. It's never easy. It's always uglier than you want, but they really collaborated nicely with us and made the most of that transition. We're really bullish about what we're seeing this year in terms of the moment from a silhouette point of view and a fashion trend point of view. But we have so much runway in terms of recalibrating the core, bringing it to a younger generation, getting the distribution a bit more reset in a relevant way, not just becoming known as a one-hit wonder around one shoe, that AO boat shoe. Over the years, Sperry has done a lot of diversification in new product segments, new categories. So I've always used that analogy that you can hold kind of like a 2 pound weight really close to you, and you can hold it there all day. It doesn't feel that heavy. But the more you go like this and hold it away from your body, the harder and the heavier that weight becomes. So you have to be really intentional in terms of how fast you expand. So we're really looking at making sure that as we go from spring, summer, as you're alluding to, where there's a lot more kind of natural boat shoe business, but now like this kind of vulcanized canvas upper, the CVO program is like in our opinion, the next big trend that's going to really hit. And you're seeing it with a resurgence in brands like Vans and the collaborations and a lot of the designers going into that type of silhouette. So we think that's next. That gives us a lot of excitement for an extension. But then also, I think it's a brand that can play very well in early fall, winter boot sales. And also, if you think about the storytelling around kind of a dress to work and a casual kind of denim and khaki utilization, I think the women's side of the business is an interesting one for us to tackle. It's probably naturally like a 60-40 brand, men's versus ladies. But when you do tap it, the volume there can be really, really significant. So we're trying to be conscious about that evolution, not force it, but try to nurture it a little bit too.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
When you're talking about, these type of decisions and collaborations, how do you decide which of the collaborations are worth investing in when you're talking about driving brand momentum?
Collaborations are all about just changing perception. Like you can talk about it until you're blue in the face in the boardroom, but it's all about just changing perception. So it's about what are you trying to change as a perception? For us, it's about with Sperry establishing more relevancy and I would say a bit more of a contemporary angle, especially in a younger demographic. That being said, we really make sure that we're collaborating with people who we enjoy working with. We have the luxury of picking and choosing who the collaborations are with. So I think from a needle point of view, they've got to feel authentic. They've got to feel like there's a good character match. We have to be proud of who we're at the dinner table with. We have to feel that there's more than just a commercial motive to doing it, that there's something that's a little bit more that's going to be unexpected, that's going to get people's interest peaked, that's going to be emotional. And our collab team has done a really good job at just partnering with great people, great brands, and then the product team kind of matching that with very fresh product that's coming out. Sometimes you can have an initiative that is definitely more with an objective of we want to get footwear on people's feet. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's the best marketing in the world is just put more product on people. But I think then there's also projects that you pick where you're playing a bit more of a longer lawn dart and you're basically trying to pull the brand into a space that you want the brand to sit in the future. But you have to do that gently. And you've got to be okay that if the effect there is to sell 600 or 800 units and it's just on the right 600 or 800 pairs of feet, then that's fine too.
So, Jonathan, I know this is like the era of not having to talk about what your results will be. In fact, when you're publicly traded, most companies are withholding their guidance, which is a weird environment to be in. At the risk of asking you to do something they're not willing to do, talk to us about kind of 2025 and what you expect for 26. There's so many landmines out there. Are there things that you are learning as you navigate these landmines that are maybe making you and the organization stronger? Walk us through kind of your current thinking.
I think I'd mentioned to you before, Matt, the idea of just being frustrated in general. It's been a huge amount of challenges that none of us needed to face after we were rebuilding from the pandemic and COVID era that we had all lived through. I think we all felt like we were just starting to get our momentum back and confidence with consumers and be on solid ground when 2025 took a very different turn in April, and so many things changed. I also felt like the information and what we were able to get and making better decisions with your updates and working with your team and Thomas has been fundamental in us feeling like at least we were able to pressure test assumptions and come up with scenarios that were right for our business. From a pipeline and supply chain point of view, we feel we've done a lot of the right moves in getting product to market on time. From a profitability point of view, it's been a mess. It's been really hard. We've tried to play the long game, both with our suppliers and our factory partners, to make sure that there was continuity in their supply chain and business model, but also with our retailers and making sure they were at least able to navigate and find a way through. We're still exploring price increases. We have started, we are doing it. I don't think there's anybody that will be able to avoid that as an inevitability. But the question is kind of how you're doing it, where you're doing it, when you're doing it. I think that has to be made, it's got to be logical from the mindset of the consumer. They have to be able to support it, because otherwise, in the end, you're just buying markdowns. You're just buying a strategy which is making you feel good with what you invoice your partner. But if the retailer's not successful, you won't be successful either. We're definitely scrubbing everything to try to come in to where we had hoped to come in for 2025. It's definitely still not a slam dunk in terms of what we had come up with as scenarios to get us to the finish line. But we think we've got enough visibility and things in play to be able to deliver 2025 and at least make sure that our partners are set up for success and our retailers throughout the balance of this fall, which I think will be also a bit of a bump and grind season ahead of us.
You mentioned success. I know it's a challenging and just an unprecedented environment we're in, but just generally kind of going back to the collaborations that we talked about and the licensing. When you have a multi-brand portfolio like you have, how do you define success across that?
There's a really great book I read one time from Yvon Chouinard, who is the founder of Patagonia, and it's called Let My People Go Surfing. It's like a Saturday read. I highly recommend it. It's my kind of book. It's like this thin. It's fantastic. It's actually, Thomas, very similar to listening to Matt give his weekly updates, because it's enjoyable and it's heavy stuff made less complicated, and it's lovely.
Jonathan, I'll remember that as I'm writing it on Sunday evening the night before. So appreciate the encouragement.
And but anyway, he said, I've always dreamed of making a car with multiple gas pedals. He said, and if you think about the outdoor industry in Patagonia, he lived through a surge when North Face, for example, really became the it moment jacket to kind of wear, and everybody wanted to get into the industry in that piece, and there was a lot of market saturation happening. And he said, my goal when I build a business model is to be able to not have to hammer on the same gas pedal all the time, every day, to move the car down the highway. He said, sometimes you got to push on one gas pedal, you got to ease off on another. You need to make sure the engine doesn't overheat. You need to read the times. You need to figure out where you can find the path of least resistance in the market. So, for me, the idea is we only have a handful of retail partners. We don't have 400 accounts in the US. We've got 100. And these are very important long-term partners for us, and we want to make sure they're always winning. So, and you won't get every season right with every brand in every category. So you've got to kind of be able to play that multiple gas pedal to find success, push where there's really good momentum with the consumer, make sure that you're being dynamic and agile. But it's always a work in progress. I think if we would define success, it would be more around the idea of stability than it would be for top line growth or big surges in profitability. As a privately held company, we really are a family business that wants to be in business for another 52 years. And the only way that we're going to do that in wholesale is by making sure that our partners are successful, because there ain't another 100 really great retailers in North America. So that's kind of what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the business climate right now, Jonathan, is the fact that you're hopeful that when you go and ask an executive who runs a business, kind of what are your goals for this year? Growth, explosive growth, attaining new customers, doing this, this, and this. But I can tell you, whether it's on this platform or a quarterly earnings call, everyone is looking for stability, right? In fact, we read a stat just a week or two ago, one of our events, about how often the word uncertainty is said during these earnings calls, and it's just off the charts how many times that word comes up, right? And so your success for this year will be stability. I think that encapsulates exactly the mood our industry's in right now, and to be honest with you, the kind of broader North American economy relative to the impact these tariffs have had, the trade war, and the uncertainties have had on our industry. So I think you've captured it perfectly. Now, I do want to kind of pivot away from buzzkill conversation to maybe a few more maybe a couple more questions that are a little bit more fun. So if you think about all your collaborations, Jonathan, and all the kind of different deals you've done, is there a certain celebrity or maybe a historical figure, will make you even someone who's in the past, or some other kind of iconic figure that you wish you could do a collab with, and kind of what kind of shoes would you make with that person?
Well, I think for Sperry, there's definitely, I mean, when you think about Paul Newman or JFK or any of those mega personalities that have just represented such a moment in history and a look and a kind of a lifestyle aspiration of so many people, those are always really fun people to kind of dream if you ever had the chance to work with them again one day. We tend to not work with a lot of quote unquote celebrity people in our collaborations. It's if we sat down over dinner and talked about the network of the different collaborators, one of the things you would very quickly see is it's surprising how many of them are very different from one another, but they all play together in kind of a storytelling or a patchwork if you're doing it. And that's the really fun part, is to kind of see how you can stretch the collaborations to work with, retailers that are incredible in their own space, like a Pleasures, all the way to like menswear designers like a Todd Snyder, really avant-garde women's designers like Laura and Fernando at Monse, lots of different, programs that we're working with. But then also up and comers, like we have an amazing collab with Tal Silverstein at Colbo in New York. Really, really cool Tier Zero boutique that's going to be making waves for years to come. And to Thomas's previous question, we never entered that with like how much money are we going to make or how many shoes we're going to sell. It's just to be in good company and help someone be successful. And my hope is that, coming from action sport, there's such a deep investment in A, the sport, but B, the next generation of participants.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical to the future of the business, is that investment that you're making. And I hope that as an industry, we get back into the habit of kind of, after we've licked our wounds for the second times coming out of COVID and now this whole tariff crap,
Woe is us.
that we get back into being a bit more invigorated and excited and investing in the next generation of who we need to be in the pipeline. And that we're pushing the support for that, the future generation. That would be really fun. So more and more of our collaborations and our creative energies are trying to be focused on bringing those people into the limelight a little bit. And when I think about some of our great retail partners, they're actually the ones who I think authentically they get the most excited about, because it's new and it's fresh and it's something cool to talk about with their customers that's a little different. So yeah, that's what we're kind of doing with the collabs.
So speaking of fun, one more fun question for you. If there's one pair of shoes that you have in your closet that you're going to keep them forever, what would that be, and why?
I have it here. You want to see it?
Of course, bring it on.
Absolutely.
Little show and tell, never hurt shoe and show.
So I love all my collabs and all my children equally. Okay, so I'm going on the record to say that if I'm not holding your shoe, don't start throwing eggs in my house and all of this stuff. Okay, this was a really great shoe that we had done with Todd Snyder's group, and it's really interesting because, as Matt's previous question about like you have certain core pieces and styles that the brands become known for. And the fun thing is when you actually give the keys to the car to someone like Todd's team and they reinvent and reinterpret a classic in a way that still feels recognizable, but it's done in a new kind of fresh, fun way. And it's just a pleasure to wear. So I'm a big believer in comfort and fit. And I think those things are like paramount in people's buying decisions. And I love versatility, and I love like the idea that, Matt can throw that in a suitcase and he can dress it up, dress it down, and wear it 8 months of the year.
Sure.
Damn, that's a good shoe, and I think retailers can just win all day, all night selling product like that. Sometimes I look at some of our other shoes and I love them, but man, do we make our life difficult sometimes.
Well, that was like the commercial, or the video at FN, Matt, that you talked about, just showing the timelessness of that design, that shoe, and all these people across history. That was one of the FN moments, the video moments that stood out for me. That was memorable, is just kind of how that shoe that type of style can carry over for such a long time.
We do this thing called the yin and yang. It's like the product strategy that I always talk about, and my team is probably sick and tired of hearing me say it. But it's about always balancing kind of the heritage, the history, the historical, the stuff that your job is to just not screw up.
Yeah.
And not mess with it. But then you've got to marry it with kind of relevancy and new ideas and modernize and advance it in a way as well. So I think it's kind of like one of those things where you're always in this kind of a conversation when you're running a very core evergreen historical Americana brand. And GH Bass will be the exact same, by the way.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, to me, as you were talking about the process, it's almost like the remastering or remixing of an iconic album.
Yeah.
I'm a big U2 fan, and they've kind of opened their catalog to all these different DJs and artists that come in and take Where the Streets Have No Name or Numb or some of these titles, and they remix them and remaster them. And then you hear it and it's very familiar, but it's totally fresh. And so it sounds like that's exactly kind of the demarcation line you stand on with an iconic brand like Sperry. Like, how do you bring a new energy to refresh it while maintaining that iconic look, feel, and experience when buying that shoe?
Better pick your partners well, because if you're going to allow them to have fun with it, you got to not be over opinionated, and you need to give them the freedom to kind of do what they want to do with it. So that's, I think, where, like, you as a brand, you need to make sure that you've got really good character connectivity.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, we've picked our partners well. Jonathan, thank you for partnering with us. As an organization, the marriage between Aldo and FDRA is super strong. We're very grateful for your participation, your support. You're coming onto our board. You're also very active with 210. That's like a whole different thing where you're giving back to 210 and their amazing mission. So thank you for all that you do for our industry. We're so glad we yanked you out of action sports and sucked you into the vortex that is footwear, because it's like a black hole. You cannot leave. Like, light doesn't escape. We hold on to all the light we can. So thank you for doing that and for coming on Shoe and Show today.
It's an absolute pleasure. You guys are gentlemen and scholars, and it's always fun to hang out with you, and thanks for including me.
My pleasure. We're gentlemen and scholars in that order, just so everyone's clear. So, folks, thanks for coming on Shoe and Show and watching and listening to another exciting edition. Go to shoeandshow.com for all of our episodes. We're nearing 500 episodes. It's like right around the corner. Been doing this for 9 years. I can feel it coming here soon. And until next time, Shoe and Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.